Hello, Namaste. Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Mr. Donald J. Trump talked to each other on 12th of February 2025. Now, this date, 12th of February 2025, is significant because it's after 3 years the president of these two countries talked to each other over phone or there was over. Now, this date is significant because this is after 3 years the president of these two countries talk to each other. And social media is buzz with every kind of commentary on saying that the conflict will end and Ukraine is thrown in the bus and the EU is sidelines and the US Russia rapprochement have begun and the conflict war will end just like that. Just like that. I don't think so. These talks are just to begin negotiation between Russia and America, USA, and this does not mean anything at the moment until some more conclusive talks begin and that terms and deals comes out. I think it's just a good thing that the US is engaging with Russia because so far the previous administration of US government refused to talk to Russia. They avoided all sorts of any negotiations with Russia, but Trump administration wants to talk and that's a good deal. But I think there are some few things we need to understand that this is not done deal yet that the conflict is end. There are reasons I listed, and the first I have highlighted this is historic change. It's good that these two countries are talking, as Russia has always accused that Ukraine is a proxy created by US or NATO to weaken Russia, and US is providing all sorts of money, weapons, um, intelligence in the war without directly fighting. So if Russia and US talk and find a way out, then of course um, the war can be called practically ending, or the US is withdrawing support, something like that. However, when you talk about negotiation, there are a very much perceptual difference between two sides and what a US president has said, as far as I know, or the reports coming out, that he said that he wants to have a ceasefire on the current front line of the battlefront line, which Russia is completely opposed. They don't want to freeze any conflict. They want a permanent solution, not a freezing of conflict, because they believe that if they freeze it now, then after a few years, the Ukraine will be rearmed and then the war will start again. And they also want a new European security architecture. The architecture, this security architecture simply means that they want Americans or NATO missiles as far as away from their borders as possible. They have, I read somewhere that the Russian strategic community wants them to East Germany, the before I think 1989, where the nuclear missiles were stationed, the weapons were stored. This much far. That's what we want. And new European security architecture. Now this can mean a lot of things because since then NATO has expanded. Sweden and Finland join, and and uh, and things have changed on the ground also. And Mr. Trump also said that he wants, or his, or the director of, I think it's a director of Pentagon or a defense secretary. He wants European peacekeeping force in Ukraine again on the freezing line to guard the border so that the conflict will not happen. Again, Ukrainian side and Russian side, and that will be European peacekeeping force that will not be covered by NATO Article 5. So if something happens again, if they fight, then the US will not come to aid, and Ukraine will not receive any security guarantees from US government, or Ukraine will not join NATO. That's all fine, but Russians will not accept any peacekeeping force in Ukraine, like they have said. It doesn't matter who comes it's still again the NATO forces or NATO country forces coming into Ukraine. That's direct conflict with Russia. So this is what Russians are saying, that the kind of perception difference Americans have, that they assumed that they will offer this and Russia will accept, but Russia has clearly communicated. So there's a perception difference for talks to begin, and they have to sort it out first. So what is Russia's core demand? What are Russia's core demand, which they have repeated again and again many times, and they have keep on repeating the same thing. The first is territorial. So the territorial in the sense that they want full control or full recognition of Crimea, but plus the four oblasts that they now considered part of Russian Federation, and they want full withdrawal of parts from the parts where Ukraine currently occupies of those four oblasts. So that's territorial recognition of those lands as part of Russian Federation. That's something possibly European countries and Ukraine will not agree just like that. So that's territorial. And Russia also wants Ukraine to be demilitarized. It's like they don't want Ukraine to be any threat in the future. Like NATO, Ukraine can never be part of NATO. Ukraine cannot get any security guarantees from the countries. And Russia also wants Ukraine to be demilitarized and have a very low scale military. We don't want a very high scale military, low scale military. And Russia have a say in the future and any of their military built up or any military upgradation. That's what they want. And Ukrainian constitution has a NATO clause that they want to become part of NATO one day. So Russia wants Ukrainian constitution to be rewritten. That doesn't involve anything related to NATO. Ukraine can never become part of NATO and threat to Russia again. So they want the constitution to be rewritten. And of course, they want change the government. They feel that the current government in Ukraine is very much hostile to Russia. So they want change the government and they want a government friendly to Russia. So a lot of things, these are demands of Russia with respect to Ukraine. And European security architecture is with respect to NATO, and they can demand more. So these are the core demand, and this is something maybe European countries may not agree. Ukraine definitely won't agree for those demands. So how this is going to play out, we'll see. One of the interesting thing which some of the commentators has said, why Russia is talking as such. Russia is not in a weaker position; they are in a very strong position, and U.S. government doesn't have much leverage left anywhere because Russia survives sanctions. They are able to grow economically. They are winning on the battlefield as per many reports, and they found new partners after sanctions to sell the markets. They are part of BRICS. They have joined with China, Iran, North Korea to create a grouping of anti-West to challenge the Western hegemony, what they call, and they also leading the efforts to de-dollarize. So Russia doesn't have to talk to U.S. government as such. If they talk about leverage, but it's good if Russia can achieve their results whatever they want in Ukraine through talks, but they are fully prepared to continue the military engagements in Ukraine if the talk doesn't yield as per requirements, because they put some conditions, like I said, core demands. If those demands are not met through diplomacy, through negotiation, then they're ready to do it through military means. They're fully prepared to it because they have now the backing of the whole, like BRICS, or the countries who are joining the BRICS, and all the ending of hegemony, which has rallied a lot of countries not support but with Russia. So Russia is for a new market economically. But the biggest thing about is Mr. Trump totally bypassed. He did not include European Union and Ukraine in talking with Russia. Russia has said that they only negotiate with Americans or US government, not with Europe, not with Ukraine. It's very difficult to assume or think that how peace in Ukraine will be possible without the active involvement of Ukrainian government. The war is happening in Ukraine, and Ukraine refugees are mostly in European countries. So these are mostly impacted, and European countries are considering Russia as a threat or a emerging military threat. So they are the ones feel threatened or going to be impacted of resurgent Russia in their own words. So if they are not included in any negotiations, why would they accept any such deals? They can simply refuse to accept a deal, and the US government just walk away. Fine, they can walk away because they are not the ones fighting, or they are not the ones the white war is not happening on the American soil, so they are not being impacted, but European countries and Ukraine is impacted. So they if they are not feel represented in negotiation, they don't have to accept those deals. And the Mm, so US and Russia can talk. It's good, but maybe the war will never end. European countries will continue to support Ukraine, and the war will go in some way or other. So that's the key point, that the American government wants Ukraine's mineral resources in return of providing aid, but that can also be done with European countries. They can say, "Hey, we provided aid too. We can also provide aid in the future. So you give us some mineral resources." So that's a kind of thing, and this will also involve the question of NATO. If European countries feel that America is not going to provide them security against Russia, then they can create a European Union sort of NATO again, especially after Mr. Trump announced annexation of Greenland or buying of Greenland from Denmark. That's a lot of fractured Western unity. When in 2022, a lot of countries in Europe, in Western Bloc, rallied against Russia and supported Ukraine, but now its unity is fractured. So this is a lot of things happening, may which may, how to say, not sabotage, but may mean that the talks between Russia and Ukraine will not end war. It's like they can talk, that's fine, but Ukraine is not a party, European Union is not a party. Why would they accept a deal? It's more like that Ukraine had a peace summit about Ukraine, about ending the Ukraine Russia conflict without the invitation, without the involvement of Russia. So it's pointless when the parties involved in the conflict are not involved the conflict are not invited or not consulted, then they don't have to. So this can happen here. Now, this is an interesting point. Is Mr. Donald Trump had meeting with North Korean premier. Some call him dictator, which not the official term governments use. Many governments don't use that as an official term. So he had a meeting with Mr. Kim Jong Un. He is premier of North Korea. He had a good meeting, good Photoshop, but nothing happened. So this can very well be the outcome of Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump's meeting. They can talk about other issues, but Ukraine conflict may never resolve because there's a perception difference in the Russia's core demand may not be met by only by US government, and they may not get Ukraine and EU on board of the peace deal. So it may never be resolved. So let's see. We'll see in the future. And most important, nothing has changed on the ground. Yes, Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump talked, but war is still happening in Ukraine. Sanctions are still in place. And Mr. Elon Musk, the Trump's DOG advisor, still providing Starlink support to Ukraine army in their fight against Russia. And most important, US weapons flow is still US is still providing weapons to Ukraine of the past announcements, but the weapons flow is still happening into Ukraine. So on the ground, nothing has changed, and it may not change until the talks will complete and uh, uh, some deal has been signed properly. Till the time, the fighting may continue, and that may happen days, weeks, months, maybe a year. You don't know. So I'm very skeptical of Ukraine war is ending very soon. It's sad, but it's the reality. What do you think?